It is that fundamental belief, I am my brother's keeper, I am my sister's keeper, that makes this country work. Whoa, whoa, yeah. Some people are divided by religion, yeah. Oh, yeah. Some people are divided by their greed, yeah. Some people are divided by deception, yeah. Oh, yeah. Some have a lot of money but still in need, yeah. The time has come to help your hurting brother. Time has come to think about your sister. Can't turn a blind eye to their need, yeah. Share some love to help your hurting brother. Share some love to help your fallen sister. One God, one faith, one destiny, yeah. It's time for unity, yeah. Deception is tumbling down, live in unity, yeah, yeah. Division must be broken down, unite in dignity, yeah. United under God we stand. Unity is power for all. Whoa, whoa, yeah. Well, everything around us is changing. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Nothing will ever be the same, yeah. Limitless scope for transformation, yeah. Oh, yeah. Yet no one has the answer for the pain, yeah. Selfishness and greed have many blinded. Heartlessness has many people suffering. Why can't we see our brothers' pain? Yeah. Children are hungry and they are crying. Mothers are hurting and they are sighing. Yet all we care about is gain. Yeah. It's time for unity. Yeah. Deception is tumbling down. Live in unity. Yeah. Yeah. Division must be broken down, unite in dignity, yeah. United under God we stand. Unity is power for all. Stand for unity, yeah.
Things are falling apart much faster than you can imagine. If you do not take immediate steps now to save yourself, it will get very serious very quickly. We must come together now to save ourselves economically, socially and spiritually. You must find a strong support system while you can, because things are falling apart fast. Be smart. Let us come together to survive the perilous days ahead. This is not about who you are or what you have. When the day is over, you will be left to face the harsh reality alone. The days of segregation are over. Don't wait until trouble set in and you find yourself up against the wall. Get registered with Lifeline today to secure support before you need it. Lifeline is not only the support giant of the BVI. Lifeline is the family you need to help you through the difficult days ahead. Don't be foolish. Nothing will get better. Save yourself now before things turn for the worst. Become a registered member of the Lifeline family now and we will help you through the challenging days ahead. You can depend on us. Find us at 4 Mill Mall or call us at 540-4555 or email us at lifelinebvilimited@gmail.com for more information.
Lifeline Financial Programs, the gateway to a better future.
Good evening, good evening, good evening, and let me welcome you very warm, or should I say, very warmly, to the to another episode of the Raw Truth. And this is your special Monday evening program. We broadcast from right here in the Virgin Islands across the world, and of course, uh, from time to time, we bring you some very interesting guests, and much the more so tonight. Um, we really have some very interesting matters to uh, to dissect as we move through the program tonight. Wherever you're watching from, let me welcome you to all our friends across the BVI. I'm watching you right here. Let me thank you so much for joining us. To all our friends from elsewhere across the world, across the Caribbean region, USA, Canada, Britain, Africa, gracious, wherever you are across the world, we thank you so much for joining us. And forgive me if I haven't mentioned your destination, your place where you're viewing from. It's diverse, but wherever you're from, general welcome to you all. We have been watching the madness, covert madness, if you call it. People across the world right now are as confused as hell. I'm not sure where it's going to end. You could slice the tension with a knife, literally. And it really leaves us in a very peculiar place as we watch the the 21st century unfold right before our faces. And I think we all know that something is about to happen, but not many of us understand exactly what is happening as things continue to unfold. You watch governments as laws are made, and trust me, laws are made. Many laws are made, and the people sit watching helplessly as laws slap you right, left, and center. And in the mind of everyone, government make laws, you have to abide by them. Because in the mind of most of us, these are laws that you have to follow, laws that you have to observe. But are these laws just? Are these laws only a color of law? Or are they indeed structured to facilitate the law of liberty? Yes, I normally say not all things legal are lawful. And when the day is over, it must be understood that governments are finding themselves in a very serious position right now, because our peoples across the world are waking up to the startling reality of the facts. Please share this live because it's going to get very interesting. Our people across the world are waking up to the staunch reality of the facts. And many of us who think that our governments have been doing things to help us are now realizing that rather than help us, a lot of people are dying like hell. And no one is able to even understand it or even fathom the magnitude of the deception, if you ask me. It's crazy. Don't tell me I'm anti-vax. I couldn't care a rat's butt who takes it or not. When the day is done, I'm anti-stupidity. Put that in quotes. Because when the day is over, everyone, we're all big people, I think. We're all mature. We're all adults for the most part. And where an adult has a family with children, then you need to guide your children accordingly. When the day is done, everyone reserves the right to make their own decisions. The whole point is, I think we need to begin to do a lot more research. We need to begin to do a lot more examination of the facts. We need to stop being chickens and get engaged in your community groups. Begin the discussion. Do your own digging. Connect yourself with credible sources. Yes? And until we can find ourselves at a place where we can connect ourselves to credible sources, and dissect the information ourselves as we move forward, then all of us is going to find ourselves in a big pile of poop, and not too far from now. I say this categorically because it's exactly what it is. Welcome to the Raw Truth. If this is your first time here, let me welcome you to the Raw Truth. And I'm Kenny G. I'll be here with you for the rest of the evening, and we have a very special guest with us this evening. He is a no-nonsense lawman. Absolutely no nonsense. He's gonna give it to you like it is this evening. And sorry for those of you who have a weak heart. If you can't manage the raw truth, this is not the platform for you. Please leave now, because this is gonna get real hard. Serious matter. If you can't handle truth, this is not the place for you. We speak our truth gently. We speak our truth kindly. We speak our truth with discretion. Nonetheless, it doesn't make it any easier for you to digest it if you're not in for the raw truth. Yes, I think Facebook has been quite generous to us, perhaps. Generous because we have been decent in the way we speak our truth. We have not defamed anyone. We have not violated the rights of anyone. We have not done anything that would jeopardize our good standing, neither with Facebook or any other place or anyone. So if we're still on Facebook with the raw truth, it is simply because we're doing something right, and we commend Facebook for its position to keep this program going on this platform. Dr. Ben, very interesting guest, and of course I'm going to ask you again, please share this live. Please share this broadcast. We're going to be coming back in a minute. We're going to take a short break. And when we come back, we're going to be introducing to you Dr. Ben himself as we take you into the program full swing. We're back in a minute.
Things are falling apart much faster than you can imagine. If you do not take immediate steps now to save yourself, it will get very serious very quickly. We must come together now to save ourselves economically, socially and spiritually. You must find a strong support system while you can, because things are falling apart fast. Be smart. Let us come together to survive the perilous days ahead. This is not about who you are or what you have. When the day is over, you will be left to face the harsh reality alone. The days of segregation are over. Don't wait until trouble set in and you find yourself up against the wall. Get registered with Lifeline today to secure support before you need it. Lifeline is not only the support giant of the BVI. Lifeline is the family you need to help you through the difficult days ahead. Don't be foolish. Nothing will get better. Save yourself now before things turn for the worst. Become a registered member of the Lifeline family now, and we will help you through the challenging days ahead. You can depend on us. Find us at 4 Mill Mall or call us at 540-4555 or email us at lifelinebvilimited@gmail.com for more information.
Lifeline Financial Programs, the gateway to a better future.
Okay, welcome back, and we thank you so much for joining us, wherever you're watching us from, wherever you are tonight. We thank you so much for being a part of this program. We have a very interesting guest with us. I met him recently, and he's somebody I've grown to respect a hell of a lot. A gentleman who speaks his truth very quietly, but aggressively. And by virtue of his experiences, he has been exposed to the Washita Nation and other areas of interest, including International Tribunal or the global Washita tribe, the global tribunal, actually. And when the day is over, he's a no-nonsense man when it comes to law, when it comes to not just law, but the law of liberty, the science of law. And this might sound absolutely very different to some of our legal minds who are watching us this evening. I don't think many of us might be exposed to the science of law or the law of liberty. Quite different, I'm sure. However, this gentleman is ruthless when it comes to standing on all four in relation to some of the craziness you see happening around us in this time. The focus this evening is going to be on the subject of law. And I perhaps need to outline before we get any further that law, the word law, as we see it in the secular world, is dominant in the areas of politics, that is in relation to international law, treaties, foreign policies, trade agreements, etc. The word law is also very prominent in legislation, local and national laws. In commerce, intra-trading, local businesses, yes, litigation, judicial proceedings, law enforcement. The police officers, you always hear them talking about law, police marshals, sheriff's agents, and also in law institutions, schools, and even in the courts. In the religious world, law is spoken of as the law of God, and as commonly referred to in the Ten Commandments. And while in civil societies, law is spoken of only as what is legal or illegal, there is an absolutely serious difference with what we know to be law and what is really law. These things were never expressed to us. We were never taught these things, and for very good reasons. Our special guest, Dr. Benjamin, affectionately known as Dr. Ben, will be opening to us his unconventional knowledge and understanding of what is really law. And at this point, I'm going to bring in Dr. Ben. So for those of you who have never met him before, we can take a good look at this gentleman right here on the screen. Dr. Ben, good evening. How are you doing?
Good evening to you, Chief. Thank you for the opportunity to be with you on this platform tonight.
Yes.
The issue at hand is a critical one because we are impacted actively, passively, indirectly, in and directly by what is purported to be law.
Yes.
Now, often, it's important for one to understand or know a little bit about the presenter or the speaker, to know about who the speaker is, what is his background, where is he coming from, and so forth. So in light of that, I want to make certain declarations at this point in time so that the listeners can have some understanding about who I am and my knowledge in law. So these are my disclaimers. One, I am not a judge or an attorney. I am not a law professor nor a law student. I am not a legislator nor law enforcement official or agent. And I'm not an attorney general nor a prosecutor. However, my authority to speak on the science of law is based on the following. I am made or created by law. Most people do not recognize this. I am judged by law. Now, there's no question that most people recognize the judgment in law because some have had the experiences in courts and may have known of others who have had experiences in courts. And when you think of court, you think of law. There's no question about that. So we are all judged by law at some level and in some measure. I operate by law. In other words, my living experience is predicated on law. And this is a universal truth that most people may not be aware of. But whether you know it or not, it is a truth you can't deny. As such, the law has dominion or rulership over me as long as I live. The same is true for every living flesh and blood man and woman. Again, most people may not identify with that because that knowledge is not often expressed. While this truth has been kept secret by design, yet it would be of tremendous benefit to every sentient man and woman should they become knowledgeable and skilled in the science of law. This law of which I speak is called the law of liberty, not the laws enacted by legislative branch of government. Above all, the word law is not just a three-letter word. The fact is, law is not what you are told it is by all those whose occupation and field of service is law. The law is actually pregnant or loaded, for it embodies both the science and technology which govern and regulates man's total living experience. As this is indeed true, the question is asked, know ye not that the law has dominion over a man as long as he liveth? Now this is a quote from the Bible. It's found in Romans 7. So for those who are Christians and are Bible believers, of course, they should be familiar with this. The question is asked, not to solicit a response, but rather to bring to the consciousness of the sentient man the truth that this law is loaded with the science and the technology for maximum profitability. This means as long as man submits to this law, his life would be profitable, as he would be fully equipped to live his life to his fullest potential. For those of you who may be inclined to think this is a mere conjecture, or an opinion, or speculation on my part, I want you to know that this truth is known to a select few and has been kept a secret from the masses. The fact is, not knowing this truth in the law has accounted for the immeasurable sufferings of man across the globe. Thus is fulfilled the truth from the Bible which states, my people are destroyed for lack of knowledge, because thou hast rejected knowledge, seeing thou hast forgotten the law. Now what does this mean? This means man's destruction comes through ignoring or rejecting the law. Conversely, man's profitability and liberty comes through man knowing and embracing the law. This truth, man's oppressors, the few who are the rulers of the darkness of this world, never want man to uncover. And so that's unfortunate where we are at this point in time. So I have just given you a purview of how we are going to look at the subject in the science of law. And of course, you understand a little about me in that I make no legal representation of my knowledge base other than to declare my knowledge base is in a law that transcends that of government. It is the law of liberty. And I wish to share that knowledge with all of you on the show tonight on this platform, and hope you can be enlightened by this knowledge and be empowered by it, because you will come to see how powerful this is in your life. And I just want to cut here so that I don't dominate the moderator, so I'll give him the opportunity. Sorry about that, Chief.
No, you go ahead, because this is your show, actually. You are our special guest this evening, and when the day is over, it becomes quite necessary, especially at this point in time, when there seems to be so many questions, so many, the need is great for understanding in relation to the position of man as we move into the 21st century. Most of us are pretty shocked at this point, unaware of when we have gotten to this place. Much more frightening as to where do we go from here. And many might even wonder, is there any remedy? Is there any solution? Can we get help? Is there any support anyway to help us through this madness?
Right.
While we're on that topic, sir, tell us a little bit more about yourself in relation to by what credentials do you speak with such authority on the subject of law? Tell us a little more about that. By what authority do you speak?
Well, given the fact that one has to recognize that he is a living being, and from the standpoint that all things manifested has an origin and a level of consciousness connected to that existence, I accept that I am made and created by a divine supreme being that transcends life itself. There are many folks who may deny the existence of a creator, and for good reasons. It's a matter of choice. But certainly when we look at the material world, we give credit to the manufacturers of objects such as your cell phone and your motor cars and your watches and so forth. Even the builder of buildings, we recognize the wisdom and the effort behind these manifestations. And we always say, well, this house was built by X contractor, or this car was built by X manufacturer. But yet still, we deny the creative force, the dynamic creative force that is the embodiment of all wisdom, that has the potential to manifest the impossible, which is the sentient man, the living being. And so there are many people who claim to want truth, but the truth they want is the one they manufacture or buy in a store. It's not a truth that is of an absolute truth source. And so I seek not to deny truth even when it condemns me. It makes no sense. It's best to face the truth. If you don't like it, do what it takes to straighten yourself out and embrace it, because that's the only thing that sets one free. And so for many years, I have been disillusioned, confused about the reality of my world. I couldn't understand the manifestations that I'm seeing, situations I have to live under. And it couldn't make any sense to me because I knew something was wrong. And I realized I had to look outside of the box, so to speak, in the interest of my own salvation and my own well-being. And I began to explore this entity that had such control. Well, the reality is there are two forces in this world that dominate man's living experience. There are folks who might have objection to that, but I give the truth like it is. These two forces are the institutions of religion and government. And both institutions are the fabrication of man's thoughts. So let's talk a little bit about the more dominant or the more overt, not necessarily the more dominant, but the more overt of the two institutions, being government. Because we always hear about government says this and government does that, and we need the government to do this, and we don't say the same thing when it comes to religion. So religion is more covert, but it has tremendous power or control over people. So I want to talk a little bit about this institution of government that seems to have such power over the lives of people. First of all, people must know that the government is an institution or corporation created by man's imagination. This means without the thinking capacity of man, government could not exist, neither could it function. As such, the institution of government, commonly called government or the state, is nothing more than a lifeless entity having no capacity to see, hear, speak, think, or act. Therefore, the operation of government is dependent exclusively on the sentient men and women, some elected to political offices, while others are appointed to offices as representatives, agents, and servants. These are all actors operating as the government. As a non-living entity, having no capacity to see, hear, speak, think, or act, government cannot make laws. Therefore, no sentient man or woman can say that the government said or did anything, or they have spoken to or petitioned the government for anything. The legislative branch of government comprises of elected politicians who act as legislators or lawmakers. These actors, through their collective imagination, are the ones who express their desires in written form called legislation. So I want your listeners to pay attention. The politicians, the lawmakers speak a lot about legislation, and people think it is some absolute inherent power in and of itself. But I'm here to tell you, these legislation are mere desires of the legislators. And as time progresses, I can validate that. It is the written desires of these legislators, called legislation, which is signed by the authorized government official, another actor, and declared to be law. This so-called law is then imposed upon the people, who are expected to comply. Their failure to comply is often consequential. Therefore, let me say this: any grievance, oppression, or abuse experienced through the operation of government, the people must look to their elected officials, government representatives, agents, and servants as the perpetrators who should be held accountable, not the institution of government. Keep in mind, all politicians, representatives, agents, and servants acting as government officials, regardless of their offices and titles, are public servants, which means they are servants of the public. As you already know, the servant is not greater than his Lord. Therefore, government officials, representatives, agents, and servants are not above you, the people. Rather, being servants, they are beneath you. It is your duty now to remind these government officials, who are actors, that they are your servants and not your Lord or Master. At this point, I wish to reference a text from the Bible. I want to do this to emphasize a point because it takes a unique perspective. While I'm aware that many people have an aversion to the Bible, for which they feel justified, I see the Bible as a scientific book with valuable truths. Therefore, I embrace the Bible for those truths. Having said that, let it be known that I neither seek to offend anyone by referencing the Bible, nor to alter anyone's negative perspective of the Bible. However, I hope the statements from the Bible will give you, the viewers and listeners, a better understanding of the events which define our world. I begin by saying that the Bible has declared the laws made by the skilled lawmakers called legislators are unrighteous decrees and grievous statutes designed to take away the rights of the people.
Let me jump in right there, sir, because now this is where the questions will begin. I'm going to come right back in a moment, share this live, because I want you to share your questions in the comment section. so we can pose them at Dr. Ben a little later on. Don't touch that dial.
Things are falling apart much faster than you can imagine. If you do not take immediate steps now to save yourself, it will get very serious very quickly. We must come together now to save ourselves economically, socially and spiritually. You must find a strong support system while you can, because things are falling apart fast. Be smart. Let us come together to survive the perilous days ahead. This is not about who you are or what you have. When the day is over, you will be left to face the harsh reality alone. The days of segregation are over. Don't wait until trouble set in and you find yourself up against the wall. Get registered with Lifeline today to secure support before you need it. Lifeline is not only the support giant of the BVI. Lifeline is the family you need to help you through the difficult days ahead. Don't be foolish. Nothing will get better. Save yourself now before things turn for the worst. Become a registered member of the Lifeline family now and we will help you through the challenging days ahead. You can depend on us. Find us at 4 Mill Mall or call us at 540-4555 or email us at lifelinebvilimited@gmail.com for more information.
Lifeline Financial Programs, the gateway to a better future.
Welcome back to The Raw Truth. And of course, I'm your host, Kenneth G. And of course, we have with us this evening a very interesting guest. And as I told you, the ride could be a little bumpy for those of us who are a little unfamiliar with the law of liberty. Hard knocks, perhaps, for those of us who are very nice to your politicians. But what is the premise of their actions? Are we prepared to understand it in a way that we can relate to it? Dr. Ben is absolutely right on the ball tonight as he brings to you the law of liberty. And of course, it promises to be a very interesting show tonight. Please share the live with your friends. Invite your friends to this as we proceed into the program. Dr. Ben, interestingly, you made up a distinction between laws enacted by legislative branch of government and the law of liberty. What is the difference between these laws? Can you explain to us?
Well, I will go back to the statement I was making earlier, and I hope that the listeners and viewers can make notes, because it becomes critical as we move forward to be able to make the connection. Because when I move forward into the science, persons may get a little lost if they don't take some notes so they can refer back to those notes. So the question you asked, what is the difference between the law of liberty and the laws made by governments? And I refer to the legislative branch of the government. So we need to understand the government is a three-branch entity. So from this perspective, I'm speaking about the legislative branch of government because they are deemed the lawmakers, the ones with the wisdom to make laws that govern our lives. So let's talk a bit about the learned and skilled lawmakers. According to the Bible, the laws or legislation that they write are unrighteous decrees and grievous statutes. And the purpose for which they write these is to take away the rights from the people. Now, most people may not have this concretely, they may presume, but here is a book, and not that the Bible is the absolute for many people, but I say that there are many truths in there, and I see these declarations to be true. And I will validate or give confirmation as we move along. So when they make these grievous statutes and unrighteous decrees, they're designed to take away the rights from the people and do other things against the people. Thus, once the rights are removed from the people, they are subject to all forms of victimization. So let's talk about what is an unrighteous decree. The word unrighteous means not righteous. It means sinful. It means wicked. It means unjust. It means harmful. So if indeed it were true, and it is true, that the legislators, the ones who are learned and skilled in law, who purport that they have the absolute truth about law, how could they be engaged in writing unrighteous decrees and grievous statutes? How could they set out to deliberately do this to bring harm to the people they're supposed to protect? What is a grievous statute? The word grievous means causing or characterized by severe pain, sorrow, and suffering, oppressive. The Bible also gives evidence of these unrighteous decrees and grievous statutes. It's not just a declaration for the sake of saying it. It gives you the evidence. If you want to call it the example of it, it gives it to you so it can validate the claim. So, what is an example of these unrighteous decrees and grievous statutes? It is written, there is an evil. Please pay attention to the word evil. There is an evil which I have seen under the sun, as an error which proceeded from the ruler. Now, just think about this. The ruler is your government, and you have evil and attack and error coming from the government. What comes to your mind? You know, we are programmed to believe in government. In fact, I was one who truly believed in the institution of government. In fact, I wanted to be a part of the government because I believed the government was about goodness. But I soon realized it is not. And so here's the Bible giving evidence that not only are decrees unrighteous and the statutes grievous, it goes on to say there's an evil, which is wickedness, which comes from the ruler. But yet still, it is also declared that he that ruleth over men must be just. So the ruler must be just. The government must be just. How many of you would think or declare that you know for sure that your government is just? What is the meaning of the word just? The meaning of the word just is conforming to a standard of correctness or rightness, acting or being in conformity with what is morally upright or good, being righteous. So that's the definition of being just. So here we are now. How many of you, based on the definition, can declare that your government is just? How many of you can confront your politicians, your heads of government, and ask them the question, is the government just? They would rather choose to drink alcohol and get drunk so they can't answer you. Moreover, I saw under the sun the place of judgment, that wickedness was there, and the place of righteousness, that iniquity was there. Well, what is the place of judgment? We all know the place of judgment is the court, where trials are conducted and judgments are rendered. So this place of judgment, it is declared to be wicked. The wickedness is the injustice that is there. Some of you may have experienced injustice, and others may have heard of others who have experienced injustice. How on earth should you experience injustice in the court of judgment? What is the place of righteousness? The place of righteousness is the government. Iniquity, evil, or unrighteousness is there. So what I'm sharing with you here is an exposition of the nature of government. And people don't understand the true nature of government, and they pledge their allegiance to this entity. They give their loyalty. They create enemies of family members and friends because of this entity we call government. Having declared all that, let me recap. let me recap, please pay attention. The skilled in law legislators, the lawmakers, write unrighteous decrees and grievous statutes, the purpose of which is to take away your rights so that they can victimize you. There is an evil, which is wickedness, unrighteousness, cruelty, and harm, which is an error, which means you deviate from the truth so that you can cause suffering to human. And this comes from the ruler. Isn't that interesting? And the place of judgment, which is the court, you find wickedness there. That's why you have injustice. And the place of righteousness, which is the government, you have corruption there. And so let me sum it up this way. It is also declared that darkness shall cover the earth and gross darkness the people. Darkness is ignorance. And so consequently, we have the whole world lied in wickedness. And the main perpetrator is your government.
It is a very, you're making some very potent statements here, Dr. Ben. And for those of us who are quite unfamiliar with the law of liberty, the science of law, people who are not familiar with your disposition in relation to law would have quite a bit of questions. Now let me ask you this. If it is true that the law of liberty is the law of freedom, how could politicians speak liberty, yet no reference is made to the law of liberty? Can you open that to us?
Sure. The law of liberty, as the name implies, is the law of freedom. Liberty and freedom are used interchangeably, they mean the same thing. It is a supreme law from the Creator which governs man's living experience and to which man is held accountable. The law of liberty is separate and distinct from the so-called laws of government because the law of liberty gives to man power over the institutions of government and religion. Knowing this to be true, and I want the listeners to understand, the rulers of darkness, the heads of government and religion know this to be true. And because they know this to be true, they conspire to suppress the law of liberty from the people. That's why most people never know about the law of liberty, not even in the religious world. Being denied access to the law of liberty, the people are denied the truth, which is the only thing they need to set them free. In place of the truth is the ignorance propagated by the rulers of the darkness of this world, which is designed to generate fear. You cannot separate ignorance from fear. And note that it is the combined operation of ignorance and fear that puts people in bondage. And the government knows how to use those very well. Okay? Now, let's talk about why is it that politicians do not speak of the law of liberty. As I said earlier, the law of liberty is the law of freedom. It is a law that gives the people their sovereignty, which is freedom from the control of others, including government and religion. As the people are not aware of the law of liberty, they do not know that their sovereignty, together with all unalienable rights and liberties, come from the law of liberty. Therefore, politicians speak of the law of liberty. Let me put it this way. For politicians to speak of the law of liberty, they must acknowledge its existence together with all the unalienable rights and liberties of the people. This they are not willing to do. The truth is, politicians want the people to believe that their rights and liberties, commonly referred to as freedoms, come from government through their so-called laws. Therefore, the people who want rights and freedom must seek them through their laws and qualify for them by complying with their laws. This is designed to give government control over the people. The fact is, legislators or lawmakers write statutes which grant benefits and privileges to the people. This is to give the people the illusion that the institution of government is beneficial to them. Thus, by believing this to be true, the people then perceive the government to be good and serving their best interests. Consequently, they give their allegiance to the government. Keep in mind, these benefits and privileges are called rights and freedoms. The truth is, these benefits are actually bribes, while the privileges constitute immunity from prosecution. And most people don't understand this. Unfortunately, the people are not aware that these benefits and privileges can and are often taken away. This is why former US President Gerald Ford said, "A government big enough to give you everything you want is a government big enough to take from you everything you have."
Wow.
By the way, let me say this. All constitutions acknowledge the law of liberty by virtue of the fact that constitutions declare protection for the rights and liberties of the people, which are inherent in the law of liberty. This means the people can make no claim to constitutional rights and freedoms, as said rights and freedoms are found only in the law of liberty. And this truth is known by all heads of government. Hence the reason people who are ignorant of the true source of their freedom and their rights get pillaged and plundered by the government because they know they can't give you those rights and freedoms.
Wow. Wow. Wow, wow, wow. Heavy stuff, Daddy Ben. This is heavy stuff. Listeners, viewers, wherever you're watching us from, you are live on The Raw Truth, and we have with us Dr. Benjamin, who is doing an absolutely amazing job of outlining to us very categorically the difference between what we know as law and the law of liberty. A very serious game, and when the day is done, goodness gracious, unless we are taught these things, then it will not be clear at all. You have the power of the people, sir. The power of the people lies in the law of liberty. I need to say this again. The power of the people lies in the law of liberty. If this is true, how could it be believed that the people have power if the people were ignored of the law of liberty? In other words, the people seem powerless, yet law is supposed to liberate them. Can you express this for us? Open this for us.
Well, ignorance is one of the greatest evils in the world. And it is very powerful because it's the catalyst for enslavement. From the standpoint that there is strength in numbers, and the people far outnumber the rulers of the darkness of this world, is where it is believed that the power is with the people. However, there is yet another truth which the people have ignored, or they're not mindful of, which is knowledge is power. It is the knowledge of the law of liberty possessed by the rulers of the darkness of this world, which the people do not have, that makes the people powerless. The evidence of this is clear. As the few who are the rulers of the darkness of this world, having superior knowledge, control the people who are the many. If the power were with the many, why are the many controlled by the few? Where is the evidence of that power? The living flesh and blood man, as a non-juristic man, is subject to the law of the Creator, which has supreme authority over man. Whereas the so-called laws of government have legal authority over juristic persons. Juristic persons are statutory creatures or legal persons such as citizens and corporations. The fact is, the science and technology inherent in the law of liberty gives the people the lawful authority to challenge and invalidate any law of government which infringes, subverts, or abrogates any unalienable right and liberty inherent in the law of liberty. Now, if that were true, then why in the world are we in bondage? Why are we allowing our rights to be taken away from us? Look at what we've been subjected to even now. And there are a number of people asking, well, what can we do? What do we do? I mean, if you have the knowledge, you don't have to ask what can you do. You just do what you need to do. Until the people come into the esoteric knowledge of the law of liberty, they would neither be able to emancipate themselves from mental slavery, nor break the shackles of their oppressors. Therefore, it's in the interest of the people to be educated in the law of liberty. I hope I have answered your question as far as the powerlessness goes. I yield back to
Yes,
you.
indeed, absolutely, because it is now a problem, sir. I think that, and it gets absolutely worse. You look at what has been happening, and you hear the cry every day. What can we do? What should we do? What should we do? And it gets worse by the day. As I mentioned earlier, you could use a knife to cut the tension across many societies across the world. People technically, fear has permeated the society in a way that people, you tell a guy jump off the cliff, he will jump because he's afraid. And this has become a very serious problem to many people who are so confused that they don't know their right and different from the left. Yes, while I do not necessarily want to get into some of the issues as we face them, because we all know what we're all facing. I think it is very, very important for us to get to this place where we understand the essence of the significance of our rights as a people. I think the time has come for us to understand very, very, very fully that we are still living at a place where nothing is mandated upon us, nothing at all. And you reserve the right to choose. You still reserve that right. Therefore, where your rights have been violated, yes, we all reserve the right to understand what it means to be violated. And we all should understand what it means to stand for that which is right and just and lawful. If you notice, I did not say legal, because not all things legal are lawful. It needs to be clear. So let me get back to Dr. Ben. If all that you have said is so far concerning this law of liberty is true, can you give a testimony of your personal experience of the efficacy of the law of liberty? Talk with us and help us to understand exactly what you're talking about.
Well, yes. The law of liberty is by far the supreme, the absolute. I had the privilege of working with inmates in a minimum security correctional facility in the state of Virginia in the U.S. as a substance abuse counselor. Prior to my tenure, I was informed that the prison environment was very hostile, with high levels of crime and violence. Through the law of liberty, I deployed an initiative called Life Science Education, which was so effective. In 2.25 years, the crime and violence was reduced by 96%, a feat that neither religion nor prayers was able to accomplish in a decade. Prior to me working with those inmates, many of them were unfairly treated, being unjustly denied parole. Having worked with them and seen their transformation, I felt they deserved to be released from prison. So, using the science and technology in the law of liberty, I equipped them, in other words, I prepared them to go before the parole board. Their knowledge in the science of law and life science education was superior to that of the parole board. The parole board could not compete with them. not willing to show their ignorance in the science of law and life science education, the parole board surrendered. They concurred with and accepted the revealed transformation of the inmates and declared they were qualified for parole. So, using the law of liberty, I was able to deliver several Muslim and Christian inmates from prison who otherwise would have remained incarcerated, a feat their Muslim and Christian teachers, with all their prayers and great faith, could not accomplish. I yield.
Wow. And this continues to be your drive. You look at there are a lot of people right now across the world who are, and I put this in quotes, unjustly incarcerated for different reasons. It seemed to me that if you don't have money nowadays, you don't stand a chance at all. Where does this go? Is it that our people can equip themselves to defend themselves, even in such a case, without a lawyer? Because it seems to me now that unless you have a lawyer, you have a serious problem. Are people capable of defending themselves in a court of law using the law of liberty? Talk with us about that.
Oh, absolutely. If we were to look at the word law, as I said earlier, is a pregnant word. It is not the desire expressed by legislators declared to be law. It is bigger than that. As you ask the question, I wasn't prepared for this at this point in time, but now that you asked the question, I want to use an illustration here so that I can bring across what I'm talking about in respect to the law and the ability for one to, I don't want to use the word represent, because one does not represent oneself. One presents oneself. Let me put something on the screen. I'm going to turn my computer around, so I need to do this to respond to your question. I hope that when I do this, the screen can be displayed effectively. I'm not sure how, if we can
we're seeing, we're seeing you good. We're seeing you good.
You're seeing good?
Yes, we're seeing you good.
Okay, this is seeing the...
Yeah, we're seeing you good.
You want me to bring it? You seeing the clearly?
You went down a little bit with it. You could lift it up a little bit.
You want to bring it closer?
Lift it up a little bit.
Lift it up a little bit?
Good. There you go. That's
okay.
it. Don't touch that.
All right.
Perfect.
Now, what you're looking at is the word law. Everybody sees that clearly. Can you see clearly, Chief?
Yes, you're perfect. Go ahead.
So this is law. Now, this law, hold on. See what happened here is my remote is not working. 1 second here.
Not a problem.
I think my screen shifts somewhere. Hold on
no,
1
you're
second.
perfect. Don't touch your screen at all. It's perfect. If you touch it, you lose it. It's perfect.
What's happening? I'm not having my presentation flowing. The slide is not moving.
That is
the PowerPoint.
That is fine.
The PowerPoint seems to have frozen. Give me 1 second.
All right, Dr. Ben is setting up
a
power slide for you, so at least he can bring some points out to all our viewers. I'm going to take a short. You ready to roll again, sir? Are you good, or do I take a break?
Now?
Yes, you're good.
All right, go ahead and take a break.
Yes, you're good. All right, we take a short break. We'll come right back in. Yes, you're good. But we're still going to take a short break. We come right back in a minute. And Dr. Ben is going to be presenting us with a very interesting slide as he takes us through the law of the science of law. Back in a minute.
Things are falling apart much faster than you can imagine. If you do not take immediate steps now to save yourself, it will get very serious very quickly. We must come together now to save ourselves economically, socially and spiritually. You must find a strong support system while you can, because things are falling apart fast. Be smart. Let us come together to survive the perilous days ahead. This is not about who you are or what you have. When the day is over, you will be left to face the harsh reality alone. The days of segregation are over. Don't wait until trouble set in and you find yourself up against the wall. Get registered with Lifeline today to secure support before you need it. Lifeline is not only the support giant of the BVI. Lifeline is the family you need to help you through the difficult days ahead. Don't be foolish. Nothing will get better. Save yourself now before things turn for the worst. Become a registered member of the Lifeline family now and we will help you through the challenging days ahead. You can depend on us. Find us at 4 Mill Mall or call us at 540-4555 or email us at lifelinebvilimited@gmail.com for more information.
Lifeline Financial Programs, the gateway to a better future.
Okay, welcome back to the Raw Truth. And of course, when you're here with us, expect the unconventional. I think Dr. Ben has a very interesting presentation to make just now. And of course, he made some switches there to bring to you some very important facts as he expounds on the science of law to help you understand the concept. Are you back, Dr. Ben?
Yes, I'm ready. Yes. Can you
Wonderful.
hear me?
All right. Yes,
Right.
we're turning it right back to Dr. Ben. Go ahead, sir.
All right. You talk about, the question is asked, can one treat with a matter in the court without an attorney using the law of liberty? And I said yes. Now, I want to share this in expounding on that response. Can everybody see this? It says the United States Congress passed the National Childhood Vaccine Injury Act, NCVIA, in 1986. And Justice Antonin Scalia wrote, no vaccine manufacturer shall be liable in a civil action for damages arising from a vaccine-related injury or death associated with the administration of a vaccine after October 1, 1988. If the injury or death resulted from side effects that were unavoidable, even though the vaccine was properly prepared and was accompanied by proper directions and warning. Now, we should know that the United States Congress is the legislative body. That is called the lawmaking body for the United States government. And some other governments, they use the term parliament. That would be the lawmaking body. So we're talking about a law now. So you just reflect on the wording here, and this could be more expansive. We're not going to get into all of it, but just look at this represented that collective body of knowledge declared to be law. Now, within the law, you should have a code called an instruction, a body of instruction, okay, that will regulate conduct. This instruction is about regulating conduct. That's in the law. In the law, there is harm. In other words, injury or wrong suffered by someone based on someone deviating from the instruction here. I hope everybody can follow this.
Yeah, go ahead.
As a result of deviating from the instruction here, harm is inevitable. So we have a victim here. There must be a judgment for the one who does the harm. And so there must be a remedy for the victim of the harm. This is the purpose of law. So what we have here is a law that offers no immunity. This is where we get all have equal protection under the law. The law is equitable, is fair. Everybody follow this so far? Now, let me go back to the law that the Congress passed in 1986 that became effective in 1988 and was ratified by the United States Supreme Court in 2011. So we back to the law. So this is the law, the embodiment of the instructional knowledge. What we have here is not instruction, but a declaration. And what is a declaration? That immunity for vaccine companies is granted through this law. What is the purpose? Only to give immunity. What is the point I'm making here? If you look at the representation, you do not see instruction, you do not see harm, you do not see judgment, you do not see remedy. Could this be considered a law? This cannot be considered a law because there are pillars that make law a law. You have to have instruction for correction. You have to have a victim for harm, who is harmed. You have to have a judgment for the perpetrator. This is all in law, and you must have a remedy. So the purpose of the law is to bring equity or justice. That's the purpose of the law, and you need these in order to bring the justice. Where do you see anything about harm, remedy, or judgment with this that is declared to be a law protecting the vaccine companies? Now, this is being done by the United States Congress. They learned in law. Now, what if I told you that using the law of liberty, and I want to reference this now, let's say my child was harmed by the vaccine. According to this so-called law, the vaccine company has immunity. Now, everybody accepts this because this is ratified by the United States Supreme Court. Well, I decide I will not accept this because this is not a law. This is not a law. It gives no remedy for harm. It gives no judgment to the wrongdoer. It does not even acknowledge harm. So how the hell could that be a law? This could never be a law. It doesn't matter who thinks what. Not even the Supreme Court could establish this unequivocally to be a law. It is not a law. It is a desire expressed in writing. The desire is for immunity to be given to the vaccine companies, and so that desire is declared. This is a declaration of this desire, nothing else. It is not a law. Now, what makes a law a law? It's not a desire declared. They are fundamental pillars that actually give life to the entity or the law itself. And the rule of law must be applied in order for that law to be operational, functional, in order for equity or justice to be done. Now, you show me, anybody, where can you apply? Maybe most people don't know what the rule of law constitutes, but enough said. No, those who know about the rule of law could never be applied to this. So if I went to court to take a vaccine company to court for the harm that was done to my child, and the judge says to me, the Supreme Court ruled that I can't proceed. I can't bring a claim against the vaccine company. So I say to the judge, well, that is wonderful. I don't have a problem with that. Well, show me the law. So he reads the 1986 Declaration. Let's go back, the 1986 Declaration. And he says that's a law. I said, are you sure that's a law? He said, yes. I said, that's not a law. That's a desire expressed in writing. Well, show me what makes this desire actually a law. I don't see anything in this law that talks about judgment and harm, the consequence for harm. Now it does say that harm is no harm. The law, the so-called law, says that harm is no harm. So it doesn't exist. Because there's no harm, there can be no judgment. There's no judgment, there can be no remedy. Where in the world can such a law ever exist? Now here's another point. I'll show you the ignorance of the lawmakers. Well, no one is above the law. That's an axiom. No one is above the law. Well, you have the vaccine companies above the law. The protection given to the vaccine companies is not the same protection given to medical doctors for malpractice. Is not the same protection given to automobile manufacturers for defective products. So where is the equal protection under the law? In the law, you cannot give an unfair advantage from one group or one sect to another. You can't do that in law. So it's impossible. I will say to the judge, you can't enforce this because this gives an unfair advantage from one entity to another against another. That includes me. I am at a disadvantage with this law. That is not a law. Law must be equitable. All must have equal protection. Where can anyone show there's equal protection for the car manufacturers, the medical doctors for malpractice? Where is equal protection for what? The aviation companies. They need, the lawmakers must write the same law for these entities. And by virtue of the fact that this is prejudice, it gives one entity favor and deny other entities the same favor. It's impossible for that to be a law. So what am I saying? When you understand the science in law, you have the capacity to invalidate any law of the state, including any ruling of the United States Supreme Court. And I want you all to understand, this ruling is not even according to the rule of law, which is where the final judgment rests. This is written as an opinion. An opinion means the rule of law was not applied.
Well, okay. So this is a good place now, sir. And can I invite you back to where you were before? Because now this becomes a very interesting discussion. My question would be, how can the people, therefore, protect themselves from being victimized, abused, and exploited through the enforcement of, as you have it categorized here, unrighteous decrees and grievous statutes enacted by government as laws, as you outlined earlier? You call them unrighteous decrees and grievous statutes enacted by government as laws. How can people protect themselves from this? Talk with us.
Well, it's very simple. First of all, you have to understand law. To have an understanding of law, you must first know the definition of law. What defines a law? What actually is the definition of law? Lawyers don't know what the definition is. Judges don't know. The lawmakers don't know. Because if they knew, it's impossible for them to write unrighteous decrees and grievous statutes. Because the definition of law, as a matter of fact, the purpose of the law defines the definition. It's not you just make up a definition for law. The purpose of the law defines the definition. For example, if you have what is called family law, then you have battery law, or then you have child pornography law, or you have robbery law. All these so-called laws, you have to have a purpose for their creation. And by virtue of the purpose, you can have the definition. And by virtue of the definition, you understand the operation involved, and now you have to craft it that it's reflective of the pillars where justice can prevail and the rule of law can be applied. So you don't arbitrarily write something down and call it a law. So what happens now, when persons are educated in the science of law, you can pick apart any legislation called a law, prove it's not a law, prove it's a desire expressed in writing, prove it's the color of law, which gives the appearance it has lawful authority, which it doesn't, and you can pick it apart, prove that it's nothing. So the protection comes by being educated in what law is, what the science of law is, what's the embodiment of law, what makes law functional, to where the law is said to be perfect and just and right. When the law is administered, the evildoer and the victim walk away knowing it is just. Justice was served. That's the power of law when it is righteous. How many people walk away from a court setting dissatisfied? I only recently had a gentleman talk to me, and he said to me, an attorney told him, in most instances, when he leaves the courtroom and he goes home, he feels like he is the criminal. Now explain to me, why would any attorney say that? Except it validates the fact that the iniquity exists in the place of judgment. It validates the fact that those who are operating in law are ignorant of what law is. Because law is not about inequity. It's not about injustice. It's not about harm. It's about righteousness. It's about freedom. It's about happiness. It's about contentment. That's the power in law. And no one is going to experience that unless we embrace the law of liberty. You can jump high or jump low. Nobody has ever deployed the law of liberty to work.
Dr. Ben, you said earlier that governments cannot make laws. What do you mean by that?
Well, I just demonstrated the inability of government to make laws. I just showed you why I put the screen up there. You have a law that is not a law at all. You have a law that expresses a desire and call it law. It's the desire of the Congress to grant immunity to the vaccine companies. That's a desire. It's not a law. It is not equitable.
So hold on, sir. The statutes and the what else you call them? Statutes and
they call statutes and decrees. Now, of course,
decrees and all of these things.
Right.
Yes. You're saying to me that anything which violates the rights of any sentient being is unlawful, regardless of what whether or not it's called law. Yes, regardless of which government makes it, if it violates the right of the sentient man, it's
right.
Unlawful or illegal.
Well, okay, what is legal comes from statutes, and legal simply means the government decides they will not prosecute you. Okay? So the vaccine companies deliberately put products out that are harmful to people, which is wrong because it creates a harm. And the government says, I will not prosecute you for harming the people. That is legal. That's why everybody says it is legal. What is legal is not lawful. Lawful transcends what is legal. And your freedom lies in law. Not in what is legal, not in what is statutes and codes, all of these different terms, which means nothing more than the same thing. You call it a code, you call it an act, it doesn't make any difference. It's the same thing, it's just different words. They have the force and effect of law, so they're all color of law. So when you understand the science in law, you can pick apart any statute, any code, any act, any regulation. As a matter of fact, you can have them, the attorney or the judge or whoever you're dealing with, force them to declare that code is a law. You can do that by your questions. They have to declare it's a law. And as a matter of fact, if they didn't declare it a law, so if they were to say to me, no, that's a statute in Code 7 or Act 15, I said, okay, it's a statute. Well, what's the efficacy of that statute? Does it have the force and effect of law? They better say yes, because if they say no, they're finished. And guess what they'll say? They will say yes. So once you say yes, I got you, because when I apply the science of law to that thing, I will prove it's not a law. I will prove it's a color of law. I will prove it's a fraud. I will prove it's a crime. And it's totally invalid. So what's the point?
Wow.
The point is, people need to and be educated in the science of law. And when you're educated in the science of law, you have the truth with you. The truth is guaranteed to set you free. The lie is what putting you in bondage. And so the point is, no one has to consider what I say, but I challenge anyone to prove what I'm saying to be wrong. I challenge anyone here. Call your head of state, call your Supreme Court justice, call your attorney general, call any judge, any officer, any law professor, and you ask them to give you a definition of law. You ask them to tell you what is the rule of law. You ask them to tell you what are the fundamental pillars that make law operational so that it is just and righteous. You will never get an answer. And if they attempt to give you an answer, you will know that they're ignorant, because all of them would give you a different answer. So anything that is true must be absolute and concrete and consistent. They will never give you an answer. Whatever answer they give you will not be consistent. And that is evidence why we are in peril in the judicial system. And that's why we have corrupt governments, because if the judiciary were just, there could be no corrupt government. Impossible. Because every man would have to give an account in the court for any act. No one is granted immunity. No one is granted favoritism.
Wow. Let me take you to the next phase of this, because it now becomes maybe the question that all our viewers would like to hear you answer. For people who are victims of false imprisonment, false arrest, unlawful confiscation of property, including children, what recourse do they have? Is there remedy for the injustice suffered and harm done by the abuse and misuse of government authority under color of law? What recourse do people have in these cases? Talk with us.
Oh, okay. First of all, you cannot arrest a person based on suspicion that they may or they have committed a crime. Yet still, there is quote unquote law on the books in the United States that could be done. That is not a law. In order to arrest a person, there must be a sentence to be executed. You cannot have a sentence to be executed unless there's a judgment rendered. You cannot have a judgment rendered unless there's a conviction. You cannot have a conviction unless there was a trial. You cannot have a trial unless there were a charge or complaint. You cannot have a charge or complaint unless there was a victim. And you cannot have a victim unless there was a crime. That is the basis on which an arrest could be made. Outside of that, all arrests are fraudulent, unlawful. And those arrests are done under color of law. And once one is arrested and he understands the sequential flow of an arrest, a lawful arrest, and he declares that, there's no one that can dispute that. They have to release it. In terms of false imprisonment. Again, you cannot be imprisoned unless there's a sentence to be served. And you can't have a sentence without a conviction. And I don't wish to go back to the sequence of things, but the long and short of it is, you can prove, whether for the arrest or the false imprisonment, that the law used to bring a charge was not a law. But you have to understand how to make that not an assumption, but a declaration emphatically. So once you understand what constitutes a law, and you can prove that there was no law in operation that allows the charge to be made, then the sentence must be revoked. And if in the process of a trial, it must be dismissed. So if one were falsely imprisoned and he acquires the knowledge and he can establish unequivocally that the law that was used to charge him and sentence him was not a law after all, then everything was fraudulent. Where there is no law, there is no transgression or crime. Where there is no crime, there can be no victim. Where there is no victim, there can be no charge or claim. Where there is no charge or claim, there can be no trial. Where there is no trial, there can be no sentence or judgment rendered. And no judgment or sentence, there can be no incarceration. So everything would be reversed from the beginning, and that person must be set free, and not just be set free, but get compensation for false imprisonment and everything else that goes along with it.
Wow. Heavy stuff coming from the Honorable Dr. Ben himself. Goodness gracious. The law of liberty, the science of law, coming to you directly right here on PSI Network. Kenneth G, your host. We come back in a moment. And as we take the curtains down, as the program slides to a halt, again, goodness gracious, you're having fun. Time does fly. And of course, right here on PSI Network, time does fly when you're having fun. We're having a very serious discussion here with Dr. Benjamin in relation to the science of law, the law of liberty versus the color of law. The difference is striking. And when the day is done, have we been fairly treated in most of these cases? It's very clear right now, after listening to Dr. Benjamin, that something is absolutely very wrong with what has been happening for most of us. As we take it down, Dr. Ben, I want to ask you one final question, and then you will be at liberty to wrap this up as we put the curtains on it. As you know, governments have mandated, and some are threatening to mandate, that everyone be vaccinated. And I must add here that the vaccination is currently it's not mandated, but they're threatening to mandate it. For those who refuse to be vaccinated, it is claimed that the government has the legal authority to force vaccinate those who refuse to voluntarily take the vaccine. What is your view on this government mandate? vaccines. I'm sure this is going to be a very interesting discussion. Brace yourselves, viewers.
First of all, government has the legal authority to mandate and force vaccinate citizens under color of law. Furthermore, under color of law, government has no legal authority to protect citizens because there's no law. There's no mandate. They can't be held accountable. And people need to understand that. What is being done by governments now is based on what is legal or color of law. They are not accountable. That's why they can do what they do. Okay? As far as I know, governments have taken no measures to protect citizens from potential injury or harm from vaccine. Also, I'm not aware of any official declaration from governments that measures are put in place to ensure the safety and efficacy of the vaccines they want to mandate that the people should take. Instead, what I find is government officials are constantly urging citizens to take the vaccines with threats of mandatory and forced vaccination. As governments have found it expedient to come forward and urge populations to volunteer to take vaccines, why have not government found it expedient to come forward and declare they have taken measures to ensure the safety and efficacy of the vaccines they want the people to take? I mean, if you're coming forward to encourage, why not use that time to say, we are putting these measures in place to ensure before we tell you to take it, we have proven the efficacy of the vaccine and safety. They haven't done that. Why have governments not found it expedient to declare to citizens that they have taken measures to hold vaccine companies liable for compensation for any and all injury or harm directly or indirectly related to the vaccines? Don't government have a fiduciary responsibility to protect their citizens from harm? If the people believe that vaccines were beneficial to them, no one needs to beg, force, threaten, or bribe them to take the vaccine. They would willingly volunteer to take the vaccine. The fact is, people are waking up to the fraud and are protecting themselves from harm by refusing to take the vaccines. By the law of liberty, the Constitution, the Nuremberg Code, the Rome Statutes, and the United Nations Universal Declaration of Human Rights, no government has any lawful, listen to my language, lawful, not legal, no government has any lawful authority at any time to mandate or force vaccinate any citizen. Should any government official engage in any such practice under color of law, the official must be tried for crimes against humanity and for treason by virtue of betraying the fiduciary trust of the people they have pledged to constitutionally protect from harm. Given that there is so much pressure applied to citizens to take vaccines, together with monetary rewards as incentives, it is evident that the vaccines are not for the protection against COVID-19 virus. Instead, it's indicative of a hidden agenda, actually a covert operation. Who stands to benefit from the people taking the vaccine? It's not the people. It's those who are propagating or who are trying to enforce vaccine. They have a reason for doing it. Because anything that is good for one need not be forced or pressured into doing it. They would volunteer. Finally, let me say this. Citizens and employees can submit to their governments and employers who are pressuring or mandating that they take the vaccine documents for conditional acceptance with full commercial liability. What does that mean? These documents place the burden on both the government and employer to provide documented scientific evidences that COVID-19 tests and vaccines for COVID-19 virus and all variants are safe and effective with no potential for harm. These documents also declare, should citizens and employees take the vaccines under threat and duress, then any and all harm or injury resulting from the vaccine, directly or indirectly, the government and the employer will incur full commercial liability to the tune of a minimum of $100 million. Every sentient man and woman should have a copy of these documents. They should make personal use of these documents where applicable. Then they should circulate these documents so that everyone has access to them. So people can use these documents to lawfully resist tyranny. Hope I've responded to your question. Hello?
I'm actually here. I'm trying to absorb this. I'm trying to absorb the magnitude of the statement. I do hope that all our viewers, wherever in the world you're watching us from, have gathered some very important information here tonight. And I do hope that this program has helped you to understand what your rights are. I do hope the program has helped you to understand what is legal and what is lawful. I do hope you now understand that not all laws that are passed are even lawful. Because where people are hurt by laws that are passed by government, it becomes a criminal act. And by virtue of the people who have passed these laws, you, the people, can hold them accountable for their actions. This is what I'm taking away from what Dr. Ben has presented here this evening. And if this is what is just and right for our people, then I think the time has come for us to embrace this. Many of us are hurting. Many businesses have closed as a result of the actions of government. Many people are hungry today. Many people are hurting. Many people are sick. And the list goes on. And many people are looking and wondering, what should we do? What can we do? Where do we turn? You're not helpless. You reserve the right to do what is necessary to protect yourself as
Permit me to make a point.
As a sentient being. And as we pull the curtain down, I'm gonna ask Dr. Ben to wrap up for us as we take you down to the hour. Take it away, Dr. Ben.
I want to make a point. It's interesting that a lot of people claim they believe in truth and want truth, but they don't know what truth is. They don't know how to determine what truth is. There's a law which establishes what truth is. Truth is not truth because someone says it's truth. Truth is not truth because someone believes it. And the truth is not a lie because someone disbelieves it. Now, I recall there was a note placed on the chat in reference to a statement in which one attempted to dispute my statement in respect to the rogue entity government. And they said, according to Romans 13, I believe, that God, governments or something was ordained by God. Well, unless they see, a lot of Bible believers understand how to read. They don't understand the Bible is a scientific book. And it takes science to understand the Bible. Now think about what I'm about to say. All Bible believers would declare they know how to study, line upon line, precept upon precept. They also augment that by saying they've been taught and guided by the Holy Spirit. Well, guess what? Something must be wrong with their understanding, or the Holy Spirit is a bad teacher, because although the Bible believers could never say the same thing. So here's the point. If government were ordained by God, according to the Bible, it is the same Bible that says he that ruleth over men must be just. That's the government. Well, the question is asked, is the government just? How could one dispute my claim or the biblical declaration, which I just repeated, when the Bible clearly shows that governments are unjust, they're ruthless, they're wicked, they harm the people. There's a list of atrocities written in the Bible against government. If that were the case, how in the world could anyone conceive that God set up governments? The people were created by God. They are his vessel, they are his offspring. Why would God appoint a tyrant to govern his offspring and tell them they must obey the rulers, those that rule over them? In tyranny? That is inconceivable. So, not understanding the science, that's why there's so much confusion among Bible believers. If they understood it, they would all speak with one mind, and with one mind glorify God. They fail to realize that is written in their Bible. Let us all speak the same thing, have the one mind, and with one mouth glorify God. They don't have one mind and one mouth. They have many minds and many mouths. So that's my point. So let's say this. If we understand what truth is, then we will all be free. Even the Bible believers are not free, simply because they don't understand what truth is. And if they did, the courts or the government will have no power over them, because their power is in the law of liberty. That is their weapon, and they know how to wield it. In the Bible, it says one would put 1,000 to flight. In our world, there are 98% of the total world population that are God-conscious, God-serving people. 2% of us are not. Yet still the 2% of us are capable of putting the entire world in darkness, when 98% of the God-fearing, God-loving, truth-bearing people are powerless to do anything about it. They forget that truth is light. So if they were in the truth, how in the world could 98% of them allow the world to be in darkness? Impossible. I yield.
Dr. Ben, we thank you so much for sharing with us this evening. It's an absolute pleasure having you, and I'm sure that our listeners. I saw one question where a guest, a viewer, one of our viewers was asking how to access the documents. I think Dr. Ben left them on my desk. I think yes. So
Yes.
I think it might be easy for you to contact PSI Network. Go to PSI Network and leave a message in the chat. We will get back to you on that.
May I say, Chief, that these documents are very powerful. These documents preclude anyone from wasting their time to file petitions and protests. You don't need to do that. The power is in the pen with governments. Their power over you is in their pen. They constantly writing their grievous statutes and tell you must obey them. You have equal right to write back to them and declare your truth, which they can't deny. So use your pen just like they do. It's pen against pen, and guess who's going to prevail? You, the sovereign, will prevail, because the institution of government is a fiction. It has no capacity to think, to speak, to act, to hear, do anything. It's a fiction. And even the actors themselves are ignorant of what law is, and therefore you who are skilled and knowledgeable will always prevail, and I will guarantee you that. I yield.
Dr. Ben mentioned as well that the sovereign will win, and the terms might be very foreign to most of us who are not familiar with them. I think we might have to do a presentation one evening in relation to explaining to our listeners the whole notion of sovereignty. I think it was President Trump who said it the other day, that the only rights that will stand in these times are the rights of sovereign people across the world. Quite interesting that President Trump would have made a statement like that. It was Prime Minister Ralph Gonsalves who also said it in St. Vincent, that the rights of the sovereign people must be respected. I'm not sure we understand exactly the process to become sovereign. That's a whole nother discussion all by itself. If you have any questions, please go to PSI Network, drop your questions in the box. We will feed that to the relevant people so we can set this program up to help you to understand exactly where we go based on your requests. All right. Feel free to share. Dr. Ben, thanks again. And of course, we will get back to you some other time. All the best until we catch up later.
Well, thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure serving you and the community. I hope everyone was empowered and feel that they have rights that can always be protected, and they can force those who violate their rights to be held accountable. Thank you for letting me have this opportunity to share. God bless you.
The very best to you. Thank you for coming as
Thank you.
well. All right. So that was Dr. Ben as he expounded the word of the law of liberty, the science of law, which is absolutely totally different from what we call law today. If you need to catch up on what was discussed this evening, if you missed the broadcast, you can go to PSI Network. You can go to PSI Online Radio on Facebook. It's on YouTube, PSI Live. And of course, you can find this video there as well to backtrack on some of the things which were discussed here tonight. Well, thank you so much for your attentiveness. Thank you so much for sticking with us. And of course, time does fly when you're having fun. It's amazing how time flies right here on PSI Network. Thank you so much to all our friends from across the BVI and other parts of the world, USA, Canada, Africa, Britain. Goodness gracious, wherever in the world you're watching us from, we thank you so much for joining us. And of course, every Monday evening right here on PSI Network, we bring you another episode of The Raw Truth. And of course, we have some amazing guests who will be coming on to share some very interesting topics with you as we continue to give you updated and informed of the craziness that's happening across the world as we move into the 21st century. Remember, the Bible tells us, he that humbleth himself shall be exalted, but he that flips will flop. I'm sure you get that one right. He that exalteth himself shall be made low. Let us look out for our brother, because it is in helping others that you will be helped yourself. Let us do good to others, because it's in doing good to others that you will be given good yourself. Let us seek to uplift others, because it is in seeking to uplift others that you will be uplifted as well. Whatever you do, do good, because every seed you sow in this world will grow. And whatever seed you have sown, only you will reap every seed. Every seed. And no man will help you to eat the seeds that you have sown. Only you will reap the harvest. Peace, oneness, and upliftment to all. May the grace of Yeshua HaMashiach be with you now and always. Peace. We catch up next Monday evening.
Things are falling apart much faster than you can imagine. If you do not take immediate steps now to save yourself, it will get very serious very quickly. We must come together now to save ourselves economically, socially and spiritually. You must find a strong support system while you can, because things are falling apart fast. Be smart. Let us come together to survive the perilous days ahead. This is not about who you are or what you have. When the day is over, you will be left to face the harsh reality alone. The days of segregation are over. Don't wait until trouble set in and you find yourself up against the wall. Get registered with Lifeline today to secure support before you need it. Lifeline is not only the support giant of the BVI. Lifeline is the family you need to help you through the the difficult days ahead. Don't be foolish, nothing will get better. Save yourself now before things turn for the worst. Become a registered member of the Lifeline family now and we will help you through the challenging days ahead. You can depend on us. Find us at 4 Mill Mall or call us at 540-4555 or email us at lifelinebvilimited@gmail.com for more information.
Lifeline Financial Programs, the gateway to a better future.